Well, at this time, you can have a seat, and we are going to welcome to the stage here Mayor Longo and Pastor Bailey. So come on up here, welcome, and it is a. All right, I am so glad that you're. All right, okay, we're all right. Sorry, we're getting some crosswise instructions there. So as we get started here, we're going to be talking about some of the things that we all are interested in and very concerned about, and that is the element of freedom and the continuance of our liberties. So, Mayor, welcome, and I'm so glad that you're here with us. And Pastor Bailey, thanks for coming out. And
our privilege. Thank you.
Mayor, would you tell us just a little bit about your experience in the United States Marine Corps, serving there in Afghanistan, and what God allowed you to serve your country in that perspective?
Sure. I'd be glad to. It was the honor of a lifetime. Let me tell you, it was the proudest moment of my life. You know, I like to always point to a gentleman named John Glenn, who was an astronaut, a United States Senator.
Yes, sir.
But if you look at the top of his headstone, where he's buried, at the very top, it says United States Marine Corps. and I'm confident that through all my days, should the Lord continue to bless me, being United States Marine is going to stay at the top of my list there.
Yeah.
And it certainly was an honor. You know, I got to be an ambassador for our country in more ways than one.
Wow.
In a place like Afghanistan, where there isn't a lot of hope for individuals. But not only I get to be an ambassador for the United States, but I got to be an ambassador for Christ by sharing goodwill with folks who really in need of it.
Yeah. Marines are very special to me. My church is on Capitol Hill, and we are located 1 block from the Commandant's house, just 2 blocks from 8th and I.
Yes, sir.
Near and dear to all Marines.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Pastor Bailey, you are there in Pennsylvania, Slippery Rock. Tell us about your ministry and how all of this came about.
Slippery Rock is a town that is really built around the university. The university is right across the street from our church. We send vans into the university every week to pick up students, public university students. We'll have dozens and dozens and dozens of university students. We feed them every other Sunday. And God has blessed that ministry in an extraordinary way. And it allowed me to deepen a relationship with our mayor through the process of that and other officials in the town. And the church is thriving. We've got a really, really great church, and the Lord has really blessed that ministry. Of course, Pastor Creed has been there, and if I could just take 10 seconds of my time to say, Pastor Creed, thank you for doing this. I mean, I know that this is a large undertaking to do this, and you have my heart, and you have the support of our local church, and we thank God for what you've done.
We really enjoyed that night that we got to go up there, and it was quite a trip, but
it was a special night.
It was an event. It was a wonderful night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, as you are ministering, you're working with the university, and had you been working with other civil servants there in the whole area, or how did all that come about?
Well, you know, according to the New Testament, every church is a local church. Right. As a matter of fact, every church in the Bible was actually named after its community. So I get a lot of flack sometimes about the name Slippery Rock Baptist Church.
It sounds like the slope that we're all supposed to stay away from.
Believe me, if you Google it, it's the only Slippery Rock Baptist Church in the world, I promise you that. But it is named according to our community, so we actually have a more scriptural name than most churches do. But there was the church at Ephesus, and the church at Thyatira, and the church at Smyrna, and the church at Pergamos, the church at Colossae. And so every church does take on the identity of the community in which it exists in. And I can't imagine a local church not ministering locally. Correct. And so that means that we are going to reach out from the top to the bottom of our society. We want to reach out to everybody that we can. And so we have professors that attend our church. We have attorneys that attend our church. Probably this week, I would say, probably since Wednesday of last week, I've probably had 10 to 15 phone calls with local officials in our community talking about elections, talking about placement. Of course, much of that interaction has been with the mayor in our community, and it has been a very fulfilling relationship with us.
Mayor Longo, You have served before. Is this your first term? Or you look very young and fit. Most mayors don't look that way.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be 31 this year. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
What year were you born in?
1990.
1990.
He is the youngest mayor in Slippery Rock history.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit as a warrior, as a Marine, as a servant with the future ahead of you. What are you looking for? What are you needing from churches and other ministers in your area?
Sure. So let me just start with saying, and I think Sergeant Major, you could probably speak to this too, but when you leave the military service, a lot of us come out of it, operating on a level where you're changing the world, and you're relevant in that way, and you're doing good for folks here at home and across the world. So leaving the service, some of us are looking for a way to continue that service after leaving the service. So getting into office was a way for me to be able to do that.
Wow.
And so as far as my relationship with Pastor Bailey is concerned, and my relationship with Slippery Rock Baptist Church, his congregation, it has totally been a complete blessing for me. It has made my job so easy to be able to turn to leaders like Pastor Bailey and to the generous folks in his congregation. Anytime I need something, I know that I can call Pastor Bailey. Let me backtrack that, actually. It's not what I need. Anytime the community needs something, I know I can call Pastor Bailey, and he never says, what do you need? It's always, well, how much? Or what else? Is there anything else that we can do? And it has been such a blessing.
So you're kind of the fountainhead, the retailer of things that the community might need. And of course, you need to be outfitted with those same resources. And you are looking for help from other community leaders
yes, sir.
as well.
And I have to tell you, and I just want to sing Pastor Bailey's praises just one more time, because it is so often on a local level, especially where you don't have a whole lot of folks that you can turn to that are willing to get involved. And I totally understand how individuals, they have families and lives that they are concerned with, but it is so nice to be able to turn to a guy like Pastor Bailey and have that partnership. It's not a partnership that you see on the local level very often at all.
I agree. And most of our viewers are pastors. And Pastor Bailey, would you just talk to the rest of us as pastors what we should do? And then, Mayor, if you could follow up and just kind of encourage in that same way.
Pastors are public figures.
Yes.
And so are mayors. And so are law enforcement officials. So is anybody who works in the government. We had lunch today with a fine man in the FBI over in D.C., and these people feel very much about what they're doing like we feel about the ministry. They're serving, they're making sacrifices, and so many of the problems that I could identify in my life, he has identified in his life. And so we do have a common bond of public service. You never clock out from the job. You're always being watched.
Yeah.
I feel like Santa Claus is always looking. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been good and bad. And we feel that way all the time in the community. And so
we're always good,
it's
folks, don't worry.
Is that the media that's always doing that? Or?
Yeah, it's somewhat. We actually have taken our lumps on social media because of interactions we've had one with another. For example, we set a rate to help public service workers in our community that were laid off in December, right before Christmas. And this was all the brainchild of the mayor. I can't take any credit for this, but he reached out to our church and said, what can we do? Well, we made a clearinghouse for that. It didn't have anything to do with missions. It just was local people that we knew were going to be hurting at Christmas time. And we set a very high goal and almost reached that goal. And even in terms of that kind of generosity, there are people, there's going to be boo birds that are going to come out against things like that. But we have chosen, he's got a positive outlook on life. He's got a positive outlook on Christ and the church. I do as well. And we have chosen just to go on through all of that and serve faithfully. And it has been a rewarding relationship.
Thinking about that relationship, I don't know when it began. When did that begin, do you think?
How long you been mayor?
Well, I'm in my 4th year now.
Yeah, so I came to the church 6 years ago, and it was very early on that we met and we started.
Right. I had the privilege, the president of the Maryland Senate lived right here in town. He was the longest standing president of the Maryland Senate in the history of Maryland. Senator Mike Miller, a Democrat and a friend. When his mother passed away, I was able to go and just be a help to him. His daughter was on death's door, and I was able to I stepped up to his door. The son-in-law came to the door and said, no, he's not around. And he stepped out and said, I'm here. It's Pastor Creed. Let him in, okay? And I was able to pray with him, spend time. He just passed away about 4 weeks ago. And he was saved here on when Dr. Paul Chappell preached our first Capital Connection. He made a decision, and I was able to go. I sat with him a few weeks ago, and he showed me his arms, and he just said, I can't find a chemo to work, and
Truly
rolled his sleeves up. We spent time, but it's good to have people that just can come aside. He'd close the door, and we'd talk, and just built a really good relationship. This grassroots relationship, it's really important.
We have another official that's local to us. The mayor is very familiar with this. Because of social media exposure, I wouldn't tell all the details of what's going on, but he was just in my office a couple of days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, maybe 4 days ago, and I said, what can I do to help you? A very moral man running for a public office, a 10-year office, and I wanted to do everything I could to help him with that project, and he said, you know what you could do for me? Pray for my fears.
Sure.
Wow.
Pray for my fears. He said, Pastor, I'll just tell you the truth. I have a wife, and I have a family, and it is unsavory the amount of public scrutiny people are subject to, even on the local level when you're a conservative, even when you've served your country with honor, like this man has. There seems to be a polarizing. In a university town like we have, there's going to be liberalism that pokes its ugly head up from time to time, and we're not there to play whack-a-mole with that. We're not interested in taking on every battle in our community like that. But when good men cross the path of our church, we want to support those men with everything we can, and we want to be public about that every way that we can as well.
Mayor Longo, would you just tell us a little bit about just the importance of leadership in this pandemic?
Sure, absolutely. And we were just speaking about this a little bit ago, but so many folks get wrapped up in what's happening on the national level. They're looking at the office of the president, of course, and naturally, it's a giant office.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of investment in who is holding that office. But those of us who are in a local role, say as mayors, township supervisors, members of council, school board members, you are in such a great position whenever you take that office, if you earn that office, to put change into your community. So that ability has been even more important and obvious during a time like this one, where we've been facing the challenges of COVID-19. And I can tell you, it's not the federal government that our friends and neighbors are looking to so much for help. It's folks looking to me and looking to folks like Pastor Bailey and other leaders in our local community to say, hey, I'm suffering, can you please help us? And I can tell you, I saw more positive change come out of local leaders and their charitable works and generosity and benevolence than I did come from Congress or from the President's office. And I think that speaks volumes to the importance.
It really does, and it goes back to the earlier conversation there about the name of the church and all this sort of stuff, identifying with your people, helping your people.
Taking on the identity of your community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Feeling that pulse and knowing when they're hurting, knowing how to help and how to muster the different forces to suppliers to help in a time of need. Well, there's thousands of cities and towns filled with leaders that maybe are not quite as blessed as you, having people right close to you that are supporting and helping and assisting, mentoring. What are some ways that you would speak to, advise other leaders to reach out to maybe spiritual leaders of local churches? What do they need to do?
Sure. I tell individuals that are interested in running for office on a local level how important it is to build personal relationships. You need to be of the community, and you need to make sure that you're seen there, and that gives you opportunities to speak with individuals and ascertain as to what it is that they need. So in that same breath, I just want to mention how important it is to make sure that you're reaching out to folks, pastors like Pastor Bailey, gentlemen like yourselves, because they have their fingers very much so on the pulse of your community. If you want to know what's going on in your town, go and speak to a local minister, and they'll tell you exactly what's going on, and even more past that, they're very much in tune with the suffering that's going on in your community.
Yeah.
And that is more important to me than anything. How is it that I can find out if people need my help? And it's a great opportunity for you when reaching out to individuals who lead churches like this one to see, again, what is it that I need to be doing that I'm not doing already?
Sometimes we talk about reaching across the aisle from Republican to Democrat, and certainly we need to do that. But we're kind of talking about a different aisle, the aisle in the church, and reaching in. And we need to be engaged. And as churches, I think one of the main goals that we have, Brother Creed, is that we are encouraging pastors to get engaged and not be so isolated.
Absolutely. And this man does more than church work or mayor work. He teaches in the college. He teaches history and political science.
Tell us about that.
Well, I can tell you it's a very interesting time to be an educator. This is the first time in a year I'm finally teaching back in the classroom physically. It's the first time in a year that I've been able to do that. A lot of my students are just now, even after having already spent a year in college, they're just now finally starting to step foot in a college classroom.
Wow.
So it is it's a weird scenario,
Yeah.
but I can tell you too, in this age, in 2021, it's so important that you have patriotic Americans and you have Americans that believe in Christ,
Yeah.
that are in the classroom so that they can offer mentorship to these young people, because these young people are not being exposed to this at home as much as they should be, and they're certainly not being exposed to it in academia. So I consider it a great honor and a privilege to be able to be in a classroom so that I can offer that mentorship, and hopefully it's my hope that one of my students will take what it is that I'm trying to give to them. And what I'm trying to give to them is hope. I'm trying to give to them understanding as to what it is our founders hope for our country.
Right.
I'm trying to give them an understanding as to how important it was to the founders that the very fabric of Christian ideals and principle be woven into our society. I'm hoping that they leave my class scratching their head and saying, okay, something isn't quite right here. I think I've missed something all of these years. And I can tell you, too, without pushing it on them, by the end of my time with my students each semester, quite a few of them will come up to me at the end of the class and say, you made me think about this. I've reevaluated this, and now I understand what it is that we're aspiring to here in the United States.
That is so important. Thank you for doing that. That's incredible.